Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today I want to talk a little bit more about the Signal situation. We did a long video with Sean O'Brien at Privacy Safe where he talked a lot about alternatives and how the thing is working, and we talked in a lot of detail about this controversial new PIN system. And in case you missed that video or you didn't have a time to spend the whole hour looking at it, I want to summarize a couple points and tell you what I finally did about the situation. So if you're unaware, the Signal app, which the last update that it pushed out, you've probably seen it if you're using Signal, now requires you and kind of nags you every periodically for a password, or what they're calling a PIN number. It's really a password. Now, what they're doing with that is they are turning on some cloud features. Now, to quell out some of the misinformation that may be out there and may hopefully prevent some from getting along, they're not storing any messages on their cloud server. And we're going to take their word for it. They're not storing any messages on their cloud servers. In other words, while they're turning on some cloud features, there's never a risk that your messages are synced up into one cloud system that could be leaked or whatever else. What they are doing is they are storing your profile name, the blocked contacts, and your settings, and down the road they have their eye on a contact list inside your Signal system that's not attached to your phone. Now, Signal is in this difficult place, and I think that they're managing things as well as can be. Half of their user base absolutely hates the fact that they require the phone number. And those people say, hey, we should be able to have some type of authentication system utilizing a username and not a phone number. And those are very valid concerns. Now, on the flip side, you have the other group, which I would belong to, that says, I don't want nothing in the cloud. I'm looking for a platform that I can send a text message to somebody that if both of us care about encryption, the messages will be encrypted. If one of us doesn't care, hey, we can still send messages without a big overhead, and that's kind of the case. Now, the thing is that the latter group, the part that I'd be part of, we have to give up a phone number. There's no way around it. And generally, I don't give up my phone number. Will I give it up to an SMS app for encrypted messages? I don't have a problem with that, in all honesty. So what Signal is doing is they're looking at a few different approaches. And what they're moving towards is a system that is no longer based on a phone number, but is instead based on user profiles, decoupling the phone number and decoupling Signal's access to your address book, which has been another big concern that a lot of people have. And so this pivot is absolutely going to split the Signal community, which is sad because the Signal community is not exactly all that large. And so what they're basically wanting to do is just move into this model. Now, I also hear the complaints from people that say, give us an option to turn on or turn off the clouds or the profiles and things like that, because I would have no problem saying, hey, I just want to keep using it the way I've been using it. It's been good for me. It's been what I've needed to do with it. But the sad part is they're shifting without any optional elements to the cloud component, which actually does irritate a lot of your more privacy-focused people. And so what they're doing does make sense. What they're doing is listening to their user base, but you have to understand that their user base is split. Half of them want services closer to WhatsApp delivers without the Facebook behind it. Half of their user base is just interested in using it for text messaging in an encrypted and secure way. And that is part of the problem, that we have two completely different user groups in here, and what Signal has to do is decide which one we're going to cater to. And it does turn out that most people, I think maybe the louder voices, or maybe the more voices probably, are gearing towards let's decouple Signal from a phone number, let's utilize a PIN and password system, a username password system instead. That way the accounts are portable, they're more disposable, they're not tied into the phone number. And we can possibly deal with some of the other issues that one of the biggest concerns that Signal has had is every time somebody else jumps on Signal, everybody who uses Signal in your address book gets a ping. And there's been no way to turn that off. And that is a huge deal breaker for a lot of people. And so we understand what they're doing. And it honestly makes a lot of sense. They're following the direction that wants to decouple phone numbers, decouple the address books, and keep things as secure as they can. They're bungling it in the spot that they are requiring those features to be turned on without the option of an opt-out. For me personally, even if it's a disposable password, hey, if I forget my password, that's my own problem. And if I want to have any information in your cloud service, that should be my own prerogative. Unfortunately, we have lost that ability as they're pushing more things into the cloud. In my case, on my phone, I don't want to use any of their cloud-based services, which unfortunately means I had to say goodbye to Signal. Now understand this. I don't use text messaging, and this is going to sound a little interesting because I hate that whole argument that says I have nothing to hide. And I completely say, yes, you always have something to hide. But when I looked at what I use messaging for, because I don't generally use my text messaging for a lot of work, I don't even really use text messaging for a lot of communication. Most of my friends, none of us are really into text messaging. Most of us, we'd rather just do a quick phone call or, hey, maybe it's a quick text message, you home, I'm going to swing by. And that's the type of stuff that I'm not all that concerned about. And for me, I love the way Signal was, where it's based on the phone number. There's no cloud component. There's no pins. There's no pop-ups. But in the last couple of updates, first they started doing the cutesy stickers. They express yourself with stickers. I don't want to. I will express myself with words. Okay, and that was frustrating enough, but oh well. We lost some space on our messaging box, but oh well. But then they started pushing an update back, was it about 2 or so months ago, where it's constantly nags you, add a profile. Like, where's don't ask me again, I'm not interested in adding a profile name. Well, now that's just nagging you, and now with the next update, should I update to the next version, then it's just going to sit there and want pins. We're moving stuff to the cloud. And I don't want anything to do with putting my stuff in Signal's cloud, period. And so looking at that option and looking at the purpose and the principle that I've done with my smartphone, what I want to do personally, I had to step aside from Signal. Now, as I do that, I am not calling Signal bad. I completely understand and even support the direction they're going. And when Signal gets to the point where they are username exclusive without the addition of the password, even if it does require that PIN in the cloud, I might jump back onto it at a later date. But as it stands right now in this transitional period where I have to give it a user profile, a password, and a phone number, that becomes a deal breaker for me. And so I had to step aside from that for the time being. So what I've done is I've actually decommissioned Signal. I didn't delete it out entirely in case I need to access any of the messages that are on there, but I've actually had to stop it from running because even when I tell it never notify me at all, it's still notifying me that there's an update to do. It's like, stop, I'm not updating you, period. Okay, I won't be texting with you either, but I'm not updating you. So what I actually went is I did silence. Now, there's been a number of varieties, and you guys watching the video, you're going to be like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? There's so many different features and so many different options out there. But remember, all I'm looking for is a simple system that when I have two privacy-minded people, the messages can be encrypted, okay? And when it's not two privacy-minded people, in other words, my friend that's like, I don't care, I'm going to keep using the basic plain text SMS, I want to be able to communicate with that person just as easily. And so that's why I use silence, because it doesn't require all these other intermediaries, despite me being this big privacy guy, that's the one area that basic SMSs, hey, we're there. I'm not messing with proxy numbers. I'm not messing with other account servers. I'm not messing with other things. Silence does exactly what I need. And by the way, it's built on the same encryption that Signal used, which means that when somebody sends me a message on Signal, it actually is still encrypted. Now, it's not sending to Signal. And so Signal will give you a notice, oh, this is an insecure message. It's actually not. It pings back through my phone and it still shows up as encrypted. And anybody sending me a message right now from Signal into my Silence app does not display the message on the home screen. It's encrypted. I have to unlock the phone to see it. People who are sending me plain SMS text messages through Silence, they appear on the screen. They're not secure, private, or encrypted. And so for me, what I did is I jumped over with my individual, fairly unique user case, is that I switched over to Silence and I'm using that. And I will revisit Signal at a time when they're Userbase only without requiring the phone number to be coupled to it. So that's kind of my change in that. Now, if you want to see the more details or the other recommendations for apps to use or the other things, Sean and I talked in great detail about that. It's the hour-long discussion. We did keep it fairly on focus to the whole thing. So we talked about the encryption. We talked about is Signal still good? We talked about what they're doing with their pins. They're talking about the positives, the negatives, and the alternatives to it as well. So if you are looking for, if you're looking for a good system out there, for that weird use case where you're kind of like me, it's like, I just kind of want to be able to text with people without nonsense. Silence is actually what I went to. And so far, I'm actually really liking it. So maybe I'll update some more later if there's some issues or some really good things that come out of it. Let me know all your thoughts on all this. Are you keeping Signal? Does this bother you? Does this not bother you? And were you even aware what was going on? Let me know in the comments down below.